people need to be employees. And they just need to be in an environment where they have a boss. I would venture to say that the vast majority of real estate agents, unfortunately, don't understand that real estate is a math equation. They think it's just working with buyers and sellers. It is, and there's actual equations. So, right? So there's 3 questions that we should always have the answer to. Why are we selling? When do we have to sell by? And how screwed up is our life if we don't sell? Nobody wants to sell, but everybody wants to move. And so the idea around why, when, and pain. And if there's no pain, here's the unfortunate truth. No dialogues work with unmotivated people. So the fastest way to get frustrated in the real estate business is to work with a bunch of people that don't care if they buy or sell. If you know you do this, this will be the result. If you know that if you practice, you'll get better. Why don't you practice? Well, it's because if I don't practice, nobody knows that I didn't practice. Authorship is ownership. You have to get them to say everything.
Hey guys, this is Brett Young, Taylor Young, and Rod Erb, and you're tuned in to the Be Extraordinary podcast with Urban Young. Real conversations about business, leadership, and personal development. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. We have a special guest today, Mr. Lee Rosa with Glover U. But also, I would probably introduce you as one of my dearest friends, a friend of Urban Young, a friend of Rod, a friend of Taylor. We've known each other for, going on almost 20 years now at this point. We just held court with our team in the other room with a Q&A. Ask Lee anything. And I had to pull a piece of paper out, and I was pretending like it was for everybody else. And I just learned so much just listening to you there. Absolutely held court. A guy who has been in the real estate game for 2+ decades, has done it at the highest level, from training brand new agents to sophisticated hundreds of transactions per brokerage, per agent. Now one of the top coaches at Glover U, a rising star, having an opportunity to be on stages across the country, teach your craft, but more importantly, make an impact of the people that you've had the opportunity to be such a important part of your story in the real estate game for so long. So it is an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Selfishly today, I know we're going to unpack some real estate stuff. So if you're real estate tuned, plug in. But I think what I'd love to do is just frame this to say the performer, the sales professional, the achiever who's looking to create something that doesn't necessarily exist in the business that they're in when it comes to lead generation, converting leads, and staying on task with the things that make you the most money. You are an absolute genius at this, and I want to try to take this and tactically break it down for people among all industries. So with that, Lee Rosa, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you.
Man, we got in late last night. You landed, and we were embraced by a big hug. He's one of my favorite humans on the planet. And we had an opportunity to just sit down and chat last night about just stuff that's going on inside Urban Young, inside of our walls, and growth challenges and the fun that comes from, pushing past your limits, breaking your boundaries, putting the pieces back together, and then figuring out how to recalibrate. And I just appreciate you have this way of having radical candor about the things that you know, humility on the things that you don't, and a great sequence of thought that is easy to digest. So if we could, I wanted to dive right in. And then we'll pivot from here and go wherever you want to go. But you just mentioned 5 things in the other room with our guys. Some of our guys, and I think this is prevalent with any organization and gals, that we have a hard time staying focused on the things that actually make us money. The business game is so clouded, it's so noisy, it's so distracting. There's so many things going on, and there's the things that we, quote unquote, have to do, and there's the things that maybe we don't necessarily have to do, but those are the things that move the needle. Talk to me real quick. I mean, at this point, you're up to 23 clients in your coaching career right now?
Yep.
23 clients all over the country.
23 active clients that we get 42 30-minute calls a year.
Okay, and that's ranging from what size, transactions-wise?
Yeah, I would say the lowest is 40 closings, the highest over 400.
Wow. So big range, but these are individuals that are doing the thing, doing the craft, and they're in a consistent, true business.
And I think that's the key word. They're running a professional business. They're not selling real estate. They're running a real estate business.
Amazing. So and I'm sure, obviously, like any business, there's a lot of distractions. And there's some things that you can do that you think are important. They don't necessarily move the needle. I would love to open it up to these 5 things that you mentioned that you teach your agents in regards to the top 5 things, and the only 5 things that you would not delegate is what you said. What are they? Why have those developed over the course of your career, and how do you effectively kind of install that and teach that right now?
Yeah, and again, thank you guys for having me.
Our pleasure.
So the 80-20 principle, or the Pareto principle, is what we're discussing, and then correlating it to a real estate business. And the Pareto principle is simply there's 20% of actions that will yield 80% of your results. There's a small portion of activities that will yield massive results. Yet the reason most people fail in entrepreneurship business is they do everything but the 20%. And so in real estate, the 20% is simply practice and role play, so that you are prepared to actively listen to whatever anyone's saying, and the worst time to think about what to say is when you're saying it. So practicing role-playing, taking the time to slow down, learn what to say, so that when you're in front of a client, another human, you can actively listen to what it is that they're saying instead of worrying about what you're going to say next. The second is generate new business. Actively have conversations with folks that you don't know, which is one-way communication. So figuring out what the spokes are inside your business. So whether that's door knocking, cold calling in a TCPA compliant manner, direct mail, open houses, whatever the aspects are that you choose to have one-way communication with the goal of having two-way conversation. And then you move into follow-up. And the purpose of follow-up in a real estate business is to create emotional proximity. And so emotional proximity, very simply, is whoever is closest to a person when they are ready to do business gets a sale. And so follow-up has to be a key piece of a schedule of every single day, because most folks who are new to sales or who are in sales and get lucky, they hit home runs. And most professional real estate agents miss the fact that 80% of their appointments should come from following up. And we're building rapport and using what we practice in role play, of course, to make that better or more efficient. And then number 4 is go on appointments. Sit on appointments. And then number 5 is negotiate contracts. And so as a newer agent, we should be doing all of these steps 80% of the day. And so the beautiful part of this is that as a new agent, there's 2 things that you don't have, which are appointments and negotiating contracts. You just don't have them. So 80% of our day should be practicing and role-playing, speaking to people we don't know, and following up. And as a new agent, it should be a lot more practice and role-play, and then you do generate leads, then lead follow-up, and then as you get more efficient, you're doing more conversations than role-playing and practicing, until now your appointments start taking up your calendar, and then that's when agents then have the opportunity to make a decision. Do I continue practicing and role-playing? Do I continue lead generating? Do I continue following up? Or do I act busy? And that's where we had our conversation earlier today, where...
Quite the aha in there.
Yeah, it's almost like when you're first new, it's like there's nowhere to hide because there's no busy work. But then when you start to have a little bit of success, it's almost like these plateaus happen. And it's like, well, I'm working just as hard. I'm actually probably working harder. I just can't understand why I'm not making the progress. And obviously the forms of leverage come up in regards to where is my highest form of leverage. When I hear these 5 things, I think to myself, and correct me if I'm wrong, but or if you have a different ideology in this, I just see as like, okay, these are your top leverage points. These are your multiplier of effort. How do I stay engaged in these the most hours of the day, right? And so the other portion of that is like, okay, well, how do I need to be doing that? And if I don't need to be doing that, can I eliminate it? Can I delegate it? Or can I automate it, right? And that's a whole nother practice in regards to that. And there's certain multiple ways to skin the cat on each one of those. My question, I guess, evolves around this. How many people that you coach actually know how much of their day is actually revolved around this?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so there's a model or a test that I put clients through that have a time management issue, and it's called the 15-minute exercise. And so it's a document that has starting at 6 a.m., 15-minute increments all the way to 9 p.m. And the agent can start at whatever time they choose, and you set your phone timer. And as I'm describing this, I have been asked to do this 3 times in my career, and the longest I did it was for a month. And it was an absolute long time.
Wait, you did it every day for a month?
Every day for a month.
Every minute accounted for.
Every minute accounted for, Monday through Friday, and it was my mentor at the time really trying to break me. That was his goal. It was, you're either going to do it or you're going to quit. And it was, what the 15-minute exercise is you set your phone timer for 15 minutes. When it goes off, you write whatever you did for the last 15 minutes, whatever it was. If you were in the bathroom for 30 minutes, you wrote bathroom, like that. If you realize that, oh crap, I was just on Facebook for the last 15 minutes, you write I was on Facebook. No judgment. You just write what you were doing for the last 15 minutes when it goes off. If you're in an appointment, yes, you can block off that you were in the appointment for an hour, but then you got in the car, drive. And so the key then at the end of the day is you then highlight or you use dollar signs. There's 2 different ways of doing this. $3 signs is absolute high income producing activities. $1 sign is $20, $25 an hour work. And so after weeks of doing this, you get crystal clear in how much time you're investing or how much time you're spending.
Wow. And how many people that you work with, when you bring that story up, are receptive to saying, I'm going to do the 15-minute?
Everyone says that they'll do it until they realize that now they're, the way I like to describe it is you get locked out of your car on I-95 in your underwear. Mm-hmm. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
You're locked out and you're in your underwear. Right. Where are you going? You walk in, you stay in, you're vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And that's why I said what I said it was a test. And my natural personality style is analytical. So you tell me to do something detailed, all right, I'm in. And so I did it. And the observation, the key takeaway is always going to be, how can you get better? Because now it's here. Now there's no emotion. This is black and white. This is what you did for a week, for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks. And you then start to see your trends. You start to see what you're doing. Oh, I said I was going to be in the office at 9. I really showed up at 9:30. Hey, I said I was going to leave at 5, but I left at 7. Well, why did I leave at 7 when I said I was going to leave at 5? What did I do at 1 p.m.? And so you start to really see vulnerability in who you are as an entrepreneur, which, again, most people don't teach.
So, all right, so we diagnose. That's a way that you would diagnose. Because most people, I can just tell you right now, I wouldn't know how much of the 80% I'm in most of the day without tracking it. I don't know. I mean, I have my calendar would be the first place I would go to see, okay, what did I actually do? But if it's not in my calendar blocked off for an actual appointment, I don't know if I would be able to do it. So you diagnose that. What is that usually the aha moment in most cases? Like, is it 50-50? Is it when you usually look at it, the 80% they're only spending 20% of their time on? What are maybe some patterns that you see once we've diagnosed, okay, hey, here's where we want to get to, where you're at now? What are some of those patterns that you see out of the gate?
I think right off the bat, it's, as a real estate agent, we don't get paid to work. We're entrepreneurs. And so right away, it's, what are you worth dollar per hour? And is your goal to be worth more dollars per hour? And so if you're investing your time or spending your time putting a listing in the MLS or doing data entry type things or making a flyer, is that your highest and best use? Is that your best? And then so what I omitted was when we're lead generating, we're going to put our results of every 15 minutes. So we can see, all right, so this 15 minutes you made 10 dials, and this 15 minutes you made 2 dials. What happened? And now the truth's coming out. Well, I really wasn't dialing. I was really, and so it's black and white. And so it's just the vulnerability and the ability to look under the hood.
Yeah.
And that's what this truly allows to do. It's all right, well, so what exactly happened in that prospecting session? Because agents can hide in a 3-hour prospecting session. It's, okay, so you had 15, 7. What happened? Well, I was on the phone with this person for 20 minutes. Cool. How did we get here? What led to a 20-minute conversation? What was the outcome of that conversation? And most of the time, it'll be inefficiency of getting off the phone or trying to be nice versus being effective in our time and moving on.
I just think about the visibility of just illuminating the amount of wasted time. I mean, you talk about vulnerability. I just think about the number of people, whether you're new or seasoned. I think there's you battle fighting non-revenue producing activity, right? It's stuff that you know has got to get done, and you just happen to put it above the stuff that, like in your case, you outline. I just think that exercise would really make a lot of people uncomfortable.
Yeah, by the way, I'm just thinking it'd make me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about this as like stringing together a month like that. Like there are weeks that I'm more focused than others. But if anybody's being honest, how much time do you spend texting during the day and breaking your concentration? And we have the big rocks, call it the top 5, that you outline regardless of position, regardless of industry. You acknowledge where your current role, what moves the needle, and then you commit to the activities within that what moves the needle. And then you have to have the discipline and the transparency to do those things. Sounds simple, doesn't it? Yeah. The only problem is we're humans, and we get distracted. And then
like, how about the gotta minutes?
There's
right?
a lot of them.
Oh, that's
but, you know, and it's just something come to mind. Was it, why do people not do the top 5? And I want to ask you, why do people not do the top 5? If they, at one point, are getting coached by you, and they say, okay, I acknowledge that these things are important. I acknowledge, okay, that sounds good. Ready, go. Because my perception is, I'm going to go do the other things that I'm comfortable with. Because I know how that ends. I know I can do those. But these other things, I don't necessarily know. I'm new to prospecting. I don't know how to do this. So I'm going to put those off as long as I possibly can, because I'm going to go do the things that are going to give me the dopamine hit, because I know how to do these things. Do you find that? What do you find is like, I know what's important, but I'm not doing it? Why?
The unfortunate fact is most people need to be employees. And they just need to be in an environment where they have a boss. And most entrepreneurs need a boss, unfortunately. That's the answer. If you know you do this, this will be the result. If you know that if you practice, you'll get better. Why don't you practice? Well, it's because if I don't practice, nobody knows that I didn't practice. That's the answer.
Accountability.
Yeah, and the most fascinating part of working with entrepreneurs is, why can't you get up on time? Well, because if you show up to the office 10 minutes late, you don't get written up. But if Tony Robbins talks about this with leverage. And until there's enough leverage, you make different decisions. And it all comes down to leverage. As a real estate agent or as an entrepreneur, without reporting to someone or having an accountability structure, it's the wild, wild west until you hire a coach. And then you now have an investment. And you've put yourself in a different lane to theoretically go faster. But that's not an automatic answer to hey, I'm now going to crush all my goals. It's still the same psychology of, well, what got in the way? The opportunity with coaching is that we can ask the questions, and we're meeting once a week, and we could have the conversation around what's getting in the way. Because there's a equation, and it's results or performance equals potential minus interference.
Wow.
And so the goal of a coach is to observe the interference, whereas if you're in your own lane, what's in your blind spot here, you don't see it.
Performance equals potential minus
Interference.
Wow. So you see the time as the interference, and the block of how many times, how long they're working and what their experience level or skill level is the potential. And for you as skill, from a coaching perspective, you're trying to increase their skill, increase the potential, and decrease the distraction, basically.
Yeah. If you believe that every human has unlimited potential, now it's just, what's the story? What's the interference?
Wow. So it's more or less like, it's not even a matter of that there's limiting your potential. You are limitless. It's more or less of the only reason you're not getting better or not getting better result is interference related.
Mm-hmm. And it's the story. It's whatever the excuse is. I can't get up in the morning. Okay, what's the interference? Well, I go out every night and have some beers. Okay, so if you didn't drink beers till 2 in the morning, would you be able to get up? Okay, so how important is it to get up? So let me ask you a question. If you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it to get in the office by 9 a.m.? It's a 10 out of 10. Okay. So if you show up at the office at 9, is it a better chance for you to be able to close more transactions? Yes. So what I hear you saying is 9 o'clock is the one thing that if you did it would make making money easier. Yes. Okay. So if you don't come in at 9 a.m., what is your penalty? Well, I don't know. All right, so if it was $1,000, if you wrote me a check for $1,000,
Never miss.
you're going to make a different decision at 10 p.m. because now you have leverage. Now you have a different decision you can make. And so until a human has leverage, they're going to make whatever comfortable decisions. They're going to allow more interference to distract or dilute their potential. And understanding the power of leverage works with someone who has goals and who's motivated, and goes from there. It's like until a person who doesn't take care of themselves, and then they go to the doctor, and the doctor says, hey, you really should take care of yourself because your heart is deteriorating. Well, now they get to make a decision. If I don't start walking or taking care of myself, I very well might have a heart attack. Well, now you get to make a different decision. How much leverage did that conversation or that test change the way you feel?
How do you, so what I hear is the accountability factor keeps you from the doctor's appointment, but so often it takes the doctor's appointment, whether it's for business owners, entrepreneurs, whether it's for somebody's fitness, which is so interesting. But so it seems like it's almost manufacturing those mini doctor's appointments before the crisis to make sure there's enough pain along the way that keeps you in the game doing the things that you said were the top most important things, and that's coaching, and that's obviously accountability.
Yeah, and to stack on it, yes, absolutely. But the first step is do you have a model, and are you clear in what the activities need to be? Once you're fully aware of the math equation, the path is in the math, now it's a matter of, do you know what to do? And if you know what to do, now it's what's the interference as to why you're not doing it. So there's steps. You can't just say, all right, go figure it out. It's, all right, well, if you know to make $250,000, you need to sit on 8 listing appointments and 4 buyer appointments. And at the end of the month or halfway through the month, as we discussed earlier today with a 15th protocol, where are you at? Well, now we can have a different conversation, because if we don't sit on those 8 and 4 at a certain % conversion rate, well, now how do we hit our profit numbers? Because the math equation will always equal out. And that model is called an economic model, where you say, how much do I want to net? You minus your fixed expenses, your cost of sale. Then you take your GCI and then divide it by your average price point. That then tells you how many units you need to close. Then how many of those units do you want to be buyer versus seller? And then what is your conversion rates for people in your car and listings to closings, and then appointments to conversion to listings?
How many people, when you start coaching them, know their numbers?
Very little.
Do they know some of the numbers? Do most of them not know any of the numbers? Are they just so busy doing the thing that they haven't really focused on that? What's your experience?
I don't think they're taught. There is no set education in the real estate industry. I think it depends on where you plug in, who your mentors are, and how you build your foundation. I would venture to say that the vast majority of real estate agents, unfortunately, don't understand that real estate is a math equation. They think it's just working with buyers and sellers. It is, and there's actual equation. And it took me a couple years, even though I was explained right at the beginning, for me to really connect the dots on that, and that if I want to make more, I just get better at my dialogues, because then you're more efficient, and then you can just make these little tweaks, and that's the beautiful part of whether someone knows their numbers and then how to help them pull those levers.
What are some of those numbers that if I'm a new client coming to you and say, Lee, I'm doing 40 transactions a year and I'm looking to get to 150, 200, I'm looking to build a business, right? And there's a lot of people that listen to this that could be any industry, and you're a professional doing it yourself and you'd like to enterprise that at some level. You'd like to expand of that. What are some numbers and tracking things that are like big time, hell or high water? Like, we have to get benchmarks on this or I can't help you.
Love this question. And so the very first thing when I became a coach, I just pulled this play out of my real estate team's playbook. And the coaches that I sit on the shoulder of giants for my upbringing in the real estate industry. And so the second I became a coach, I said, this is a non-negotiable. Someone's going to coach with me. This every single week. If I coach with you on a Tuesday, Monday night, you're sending me the numbers. If we don't have these numbers, there's no reason for us to have a call. Because if I don't see the numbers, which I'm going to explain what they are, we're having an emotional conversation every single week, and that is not productive. It's entertaining, and you're going to feel some type of way, good or bad, after the call. But these are the metrics. And the first step is understanding that real estate is a sales business. And in any sales business, there's leading and lagging indicators. So a leading indicator will lead to a lagging indicator. So, for example, days worked. Well, days worked, contacts made. Well, okay, so if I track days worked and contacts made, I'll know how many contacts I average per day. Leading, lagging. So we have contacts, appointments scheduled, both buyer and seller, appointments sat. Well, okay, so why do we want to know set versus sat? Well, if you can't set an appointment, well, that's a skill conversation. Part of what we talked about in our briefing before this. If you can set appointments, but you're not sitting on them, we got to find out why they're canceling or why you're canceling the appointment, which is pre-qualifying or handling objections. Well, if you're sitting on appointments and you're not getting agreements, so the next one would be the results of this, so buyer-broker agreement or listing agreement taken. Well, now it's, what does your presentation look like? What does your versatility look like? What does your value proposition look like? All right, so now you're taking listings or you got buyers in your car. Well, what are our pendings? Well, that could be, okay, you're taking overpriced listings and they're not going under contract, or you do not have a plan to manage your buyers or help them self-discover how to write an offer. You're being an order taker. You're just opening up doors. Yep. So all of these metrics all tell a story that if the numbers aren't being tracked, be like, oh, God, I haven't had a closing in 2 months. Well, now I got to spend time trying to dissect. But when I see these numbers, you don't need to tell me anything. So I can look.
If somebody doesn't have those numbers, will you not take the call?
They very rarely don't have the numbers.
Okay.
I've set the tone because they see the value.
Right.
And so the way that the cadence of my calls, and I'll go to the cadence of the calls in a second. Let me just finish the numbers.
Yep.
So we have listings taken, buyer broker agreements, then we go to pendings, so right offers, pendings, and then closings. And the beautiful number, the hardest number for a real estate agent to track is pending deals to closings and that gap, which I call dead deals. And that right there is the hardest number to track because you got to put it down and you feel it. Hey, I put a buyer and seller together, we negotiated the deal, and it fell out because of financing or inspection or insurance or whatever the variable is. That's bulletproofing. And that right there is a skill that can't be taught. You can teach the variables of it, but you gotta learn that in the school of hard knocks. That, the dead deals and how to bulletproof, and right now, with the reason that I want to finish this thought was agents right now are seeing upwards of 30 to 40% fallout.
What's that usually? Or what
Well,
has that been
over the
historically?
last couple of years, it's been very little because the buyer felt that if they didn't go forward, they would have to go back into multiple offers. But now the buyers have multiple opportunities as more inventory sitting on the market. So the skill of keeping deals together has never been more important.
Yes.
That's interesting. I think it's extremely relevant for our business too. And so the market is starting to soften, which, I just hear real estate starting to soften, right? And so with more options with insurance pricing, insurance pricing went up 30, 40%. There was no other options. And it's like, hey, I'd love to put you somewhere else, but there's nowhere to put you, right? You don't have any options. Now, this market's going to shift in our business where you're going to see exodus, because now there's a reduction of pricing. You're going to see people start to look elsewhere. They do have options. And if you're not using skillful, bulletproof process to make sure that you hold deals together, you're going to see a significant drop in retention in our business. So it's actually very relevant for what we're looking at right now. It's like, hey, how do we make sure that we don't have that fallout? And that was what I was going to ask you next, was just like, you coach clients all over the country, but a great pulse of South Florida, that's where you're from. You have here in Central Florida where we are, you have clients. What is kind of, maybe that's what you just said, but what does the environment look like over the last 18 months, 24 months, what it was and what it is, and what are some ways that if I'm listening to this and I'm a real estate professional, what are maybe some top 2, top 3 things that you would be making sure that your clients are focused on that are different than what they were maybe 2 years ago?
Yeah, so I think the foundation first is understanding that markets are all cyclical. And what goes up goes down. And when I want to pivot the question to put this point forward, because I think it's really important for anyone who's been in the real estate business and chooses to be in the business over a long period of time. So if I don't answer it, make sure that I answer this question after I put this piece forward. And it's this. Back in 2008, when I sold real estate here in Orlando, everyone wanted to sell their home. 2009, 2010, everyone wanted to sell, but many couldn't. They didn't have the equity. In 2021, 22, and 23, everybody wanted to buy a home, but not everyone could. They didn't have the cash over appraisal. And so it was the exact same market, just opposite. And that's the key, is to be plugged in so you can get ahead of that. And so a new agent that got in the business in 2021, it came in and they were like, oh, you want to buy a house? Let's go show a bunch of houses. Let's go. And they just couldn't compete because that's the temperature of the market. And so when you ask, all right, so what happened 3 years ago, or what am I seeing as an evolution? Right now, it's create emotional proximity with as many people as possible. Build a database and a moat around your database with value. so that when people think of real estate, they think of you. And understand that relationships matter. The agents that have been in this business and who will stay in this business all know each other. They run. It's a small circle. It's almost like 95% of the business is done by 5% of the agents, and so always fly in a straight line, communicate, run a professional business, and make it through this shift, because there's a law. It's called the law of equilibrium. And the law of equilibrium says this, that as available income goes up, the amount of agents that flood into the business goes up. Makes sense. Well, as the market plateaus and starts to adjust downward, well, they don't get the memo. They still flood the market. Agents still come in as the market starts to turn. And what this time period of this cycle is, it's called survival. And it's because of math. There's less transactions. In South Florida, there's 35% less closings year over year right now. So the pie is just smaller, but there's more agents than ever. We're in survival right now. Well, then as the market continues to go, the amount of agents now start to deplete, start to fall out, because cost them money. Right. They get hired by a real job, right? And so then the key is, for those that choose to make this a career, now you are surviving and you just ride the wave down. But the key is, for those that make it to the bottom, you now ride the wave up as the agents continue to get out of the business. And now you're in the thrive portion of a market shift. And so we just go back to fundamental principles, which is, what does your schedule look like? How many conversations are you having? How many appointments are you sitting on? How connected are you to your business plan? Who are you being coached by? What circles are you in? And how are you growing and working together? Because those that make it will always have a bond together. I was in a mastermind every Wednesday at noon for years. And it would be a core group of 4 of us. And then there'd be 1 or 2 that would come on, stay for a month or 2, and fall up at a core group. We're all still in the business.
Wow.
And crushing it.
I think, real quick, you mentioned the ebbs and flows and the cycles of the business. Given the trends that we're seeing now, do you tailor your coaching to fit the trend? And or do you keep the coaching consistent, knowing that it's kind of, it's always coming up or always going down? Always coach to the market of the moment. Okay, so you do have to modify your
For sure. So I'll give you an example. I have a client here in Central Florida. She sells out of the Four Corners area, just south of us.
Oh, yeah.
And we started coaching in October, and I noticed, because she tracks her numbers, she reports it every week, that her inventory, she takes listings every single month, a nice amount. And her inventory was hovering around 14. And I noticed that she wasn't turning over 30% of her inventory, which is a number that should be a standard number. We should turn over our listing inventory at 30% or so. And I noticed it wasn't happening. So I gave her a task. And the task was, what is the motivation of your sellers? So create a spreadsheet and send me your motivation of your sellers. And the response was, yes, yes, no, no, yes, yes. And so I said, what that told me is that there was an opportunity. It's an opportunity for how to ask their motivation, what pain is involved if we don't sell, how can we pull levers to help them navigate this market? Because that's our job, to answer your question. No matter if the market's hot or cold, it's our job to navigate a market. That's our value, is to ask questions to help the client self-discover what they need to do. That's my definition of a successful real estate agent. And so she did the homework, A+, came back with all of the answers. And so then I can coach her on the conversations she should have or can have, what questions she could ask to help the seller understand what's going on. Because the first question that I had her do before this was, what is the month supply of inventory and absorption rate, which are the two statistics every professional real estate agent should know.
Say that again?
How to calculate month supply of inventory and absorption rate. And so month supply of inventory is how many months it will take to sell what is currently on the market if no other homes come on the market. Well, we all know more homes are going to come on the market next month. So 5.5 months is a balanced market. Anything under, we're in a seller's market. Anything over 5.5 months, we're in a buyer's market. Clearly, the farther away, the more extreme.
Right.
So I had her do this homework first. Notice that we are in a buyer's market. We are no longer in a seller's market in this area. So I had her do the homework. She came back A+ with the effort, and I helped her navigate conversations with each seller. So this was November. In January, she closed 10 transactions.
Wow.
And her response to me was, I didn't think that they would do it. And the response is you never know if they're going to do it. You just have to ask the questions to help them navigate what's going on.
And in this case, they probably thought that they were going to get higher dollar amounts because the market was shifting downwards. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
And they weren't moving because we weren't having the right conversation. We weren't asking the right question. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, yes, and I skipped that part. So the conversation led to getting a price adjustment, which then the market...
So if you can uncover their true motivation, have conversations, then we can lead to conversations to potentially make a price adjustment to actually sell the home versus just listing it.
So ideally, and this is the conversation you and I had in the car yesterday, ideally, the skill of pre-qualifying is before you even put them in your inventory. And so there's a skill of qualifying a seller and or a buyer.
Process, yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so understanding that what does it cost to take a listing? And so as we discussed earlier, if you don't learn the skill of qualifying and you take 10 listings that the seller won't meet the market and it costs you $1,000 to take a listing between signs, lock boxes, conversations, putting in the MLS, drone footage, whatever the cost is, for my real estate team, it's $1,000. Well, you take 10 of them and 10 don't sell. And that's a business decision now. So qualifying, one of the sayings that we like to lead into any of our meetings when we meet with the seller is really one of three things can happen tonight. Number one, you could have the opportunity to list with me. Number two, you may decide not to list with me. And number three, I may decide not to take the listing. And really, any of those is fine. And then at the end of when we go through a pricing conversation, if the seller is like, I want this price, and you ask the question based on the comparables that I just showed you, what specifically is it about your home that makes it worth $50,000 more than your next door neighbor? And if they're like, because we have purple carpet and a built-in cabinet, we get to make a decision.
Yeah. So this is relevant to me because you shared this with me yesterday, and I think this is just so good for every sales professional because here you are at a crossroads with a client, right? And instead of, this could be anything. This could be in a situation where the best option for them is for them paying more money for something that they in our business, like taking coverage enhancements that are very important to protecting them versus just getting a policy, right? But we don't go to the motivations. We don't ask the real questions. Why are we listing? Like, why are we going through this? What would it cost you if it didn't sell? If you don't ask these questions, then you don't have any of the information for them to really make a good decision, right? Like, so if a cost reduction of 10% ends up saving them more money, because every single month they're relocated to another city, right? Like, but you don't ask these questions. It's like the pain of it not selling doesn't exceed the pain of selling.
Leverage.
Right, back to what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. So there's three questions that we should always have the answer to. Why are we selling? When do we have to sell by? And how screwed up is our life if we don't sell? Those 3 questions. And
The third one's uncomfortable, right?
well, that's the only one, right? Most people think it's where. Nobody wants to sell, but everybody wants to move. And so the idea around why, when, and pain. And if there's no pain, here's the unfortunate truth. No dialogues work with unmotivated people. So the fastest way to get frustrated in the real estate business is to work with a bunch of people that don't care if they buy or sell.
Yeah, it's impossible to get to any outcome, good or bad, without understanding what the pain point is first.
But it's so typical of a sales professional or an entrepreneur, right? I'm so excited about the opportunity that I'll skip that because I'm just so excited to work the lead.
Slow down,
and
Brett,
it's like,
right?
hold on, but you don't have the ability to truly help the lead. But
That's right.
but I've made 1,500 dials and I'm so excited to get a lead. So I don't really give a shit. I'm just going to hope and pray that it actually closes.
A lot of hope.
And you're just looking at going, yeah, but that's not a good strategy.
No, you're gonna absolutely hate life, because there's nothing worse than saying, so we looked at our 47th property in the last 4 weeks. Are you ready to write an offer? Well, I think we need to see a bit more. Versus, hey, our lease is up in 45 days and
We got to make a decision.
right. You said renting was not an option. This house checks off 8 out of your 10 boxes. What specifically is it about the 2 things we didn't check off that is holding you back from writing this offer?
Objection overcoming. I'm getting to the pain. I'm getting to the motivation. I'm solving the actual problem. So a lot of times people don't tell you what the problem is. You got to dig for this stuff, and if you can't find it, then there's no way to relieve something that somebody knows doesn't even aware of that they have this pain.
1,000%. And my philosophy as a coach and as a successful real estate agent is my job is to ask you questions. It's never to give you my opinion. It's never to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. It's to ask you questions to help you self-discover what's best for you.
So let's go through that, Lee, real quick. So this is great, man, because this is I love how centric this is to real estate right now. You're at a listing appointment. You're trying to uncover that pain. What does that look like? What questions are you asking to, number one, earn the right to be able to have those conversations, because you're not going to probably just lead into that, but doing it in a way that the person fundamentally knows that you're coming from a place of caring, empathy, and trying to help, but also getting to the brass tacks of the fact of, are we going to be able to do something together? You know, because you're also probably setting up to like, we might have to do a reduction if it sits for long, and how are you going to respond to that? Are you going to listen to me as the advisor to get the job done, or are we going to say, well, you know, that's it, leave it at that, and if it doesn't sell, then we're fine, we're good.
Well, I'll even go one step before that. Going on an appointment is money. I mean, I got to drive in Orlando. I had tolls, gas,
Right.
time. I got to do the CMA. I got to print out paperwork. Like, there's money involved with even going on the appointment. Right. So the pre-qualification is where a lot of these questions are answered. And so if there's a little bit of gray, I'll still go on the appointment and then have this type of conversation. But it's usually, why are we selling? What's important about selling? Where are we going? Why are we going there? How long have we been thinking about going there? What's bringing us there? And this could also be, I'm downsizing, I'm moving up, and so there could be pain points there where it's like, hey, we live in a studio and we just had twins and we need more bedrooms, right? That could be move up. Then it's, how much do we owe on the property? What price are we looking for? What price won't you go below? How much you owe? Have you interviewed agents? What are you looking for in an agent? What has your experience been with an agent? And then we really want to then decipher, do they have equity? Do they have a hardship? In other words, if we get to a point where they don't have equity and they absolutely... So let me pivot, because I want to answer it this way and say there's want to sellers and have to sellers. A want to seller, they may not do what it takes to sell in a depreciating market. A have to seller, the sale is outside of their control. That's who you're looking for. So I gave you some questions to uncover that, but there's several have to sellers, and they all start with the letter D. Death, divorce, debt, diamonds, diapers, and the job. Relocation.
The job.
Someone just threw that one at the end. He's like, hey, how do I put
job.
Right.
the job?
Right, I'm not going to say a bunch of D's and an R. I'm going to say the 6 D's.
So, yeah, it's interesting. I'm thinking, great questions, Brett, and great answers, Lee. I think about the prequel, and we call it the discovery process. And skipping through that process ends up costing you more time and more money in the future if you do not abide by that process, right? So the goal is that you're able to hit those checkpoints so you can filter out whether you're a fit or not if you're going to consciously spend that time. Doesn't guarantee the result, but it just is a higher probability that that's going to be a fit and that you want to invest that time. I also think about the entrepreneurs that would come. Somebody's a new realtor, somebody's a new insurance agent, a new business builder, a new athlete. You know what? Everyone seems to come with you and say, hey, I'm so excited. I'm going to be the best. I can't, I'm really ready to go. And it just seems like as coaches or as leaders, we could do a better job of slowing that process down and meeting somebody where they are and not stifling their excitement, but pairing that excitement with more questions about why are they so excited? Why are they doing this? Basically the listing appointments, but hey, I want to become an insurance agent. Perfect. Well, why? What's going on? And taking your time to really understand the motivation so you can apply and filter through whether somebody will be willing to do the activity to see it to the other side. Because that's what I think about. It's like you get really excited, but then you get in the activity, and it's always more than you think it's going to be. It's always harder than you think it's going to be. Do you have the true motivation to get to the other side of it? And that's what coaching is so powerful to me. And that's why leadership is so powerful to me, because the difference in the way that you approach that in that framework may be the difference between somebody accomplishing all their dreams or burning out and going to take the job.
1,000. The job. And so as you were pivoting to, let's just say, hiring, whether it's a salesperson or whether it's a front desk or whatever, whether it's a nanny, the idea of a hiring practice or model is vital. And I would, in using the discovery analogy, think of it as the first step would be, all right, do they match a behavioral or personality style?
Sure.
Then the second is how do they think? And that's the part I would go super deep on. Like, how do you set goals? Who do you like and admire and why? And start to piece together, how do they think? And is ego involved? And how strong is their ego? Do they know it all? Are they coachable? How do they describe being coachable? What does that look like? Describe how you like to be trained. Describe how you like to be managed. Tell me a time you like to be managed. And having all these questions, not because you necessarily care, you want to see if they can articulate times that they like to be trained and what that look like. Is that your style? Is that the way that you approach this? And you're now, if they can't piece together this, well, it's one of two things. Either they're super nervous or they're just not a good fit, because you want someone that can articulate, that can put thoughts together, that can be where their feet are and not being canned. And so I subscribe to the idea of hire slow, fire fast, and long approach to assuring that they're the right fit and taking that time.
Yeah, and I also, I could see it on the hiring side, but as I'm racking my brain, I could also see it in the development of current team members or current agents. Is I find you perceive that, oh, this person's doing it for X, but they're not really doing it for X. They're doing it for Y. And unless you understand that reason, you can't really coach or understand the pain that may need to be applied, i.e. the have to versus the want to. And if I don't know the have to, then I don't know, and I can't be confident that a certain behavior or certain activity level is going to be done for you to have success.
That's a really good point.
I mean, wouldn't that be absolutely? I would say, a needs analysis, an intake of what's important to you, and that being part of an annual review, and that's this relationship of we're not hiring you to do a job, we're hiring you to be part of our long-term plans, and as you and I talked yesterday about, one of the ways that I take pride in my coaching is I coach the holistic person. I coach to all their gardens, and the most important one, what they hired me to do, is their entrepreneur, their business. But in reality, if their home life or their health or their finances are all out of whack, I'm able to support them there because I asked and I'm aware, and they're in alignment or out of alignment with it. So spot on.
Yeah, that's great.
I just want to back up to pain point real quick.
Yeah.
I think about our business, and I think about if one of our agents is on the line with a raw lead, a lead that came in from a lender, if that lead didn't have a pain point, we wouldn't be talking to them, because it's probably not their first time they've bought insurance. So they have someone that they know. That makes sense? Mm-hmm. What I'm curious about in your business, I already own a home. I probably already have a relationship with a real estate agent somewhere, unless I'm in a different town or different. But still, I just wonder, is there any continuity between? I know if one of our guys are on the phone with somebody, whoever they're talking to has a pain point, or they wouldn't take the call because they'd say, I'm just going to call my normal guy. Does that apply with you and kind of?
Yeah. I mean, look, my favorite objection to get is I'm working with an agent, for sure. Now, of course, the first question is are you in a contract? Yet when I represented buyers, when I sold real estate, that was my favorite objection to get, because I would be speaking to them because they inquired on one of my listings. And so I would ask, how have you been looking for homes? And they would say, I'm working with an agent. I'd be, perfect. How's that working out for you? It's working out great. Awesome. So other than calling random agents and inquiring about property, how else have you been looking at homes?
There we go.
And I'm finding now a gap, and I would simply ask, hey, look, you don't know me, but yet the reality is this. If there was a better way, would you want to know? If there was a better way.
Oof, what a great question.
Who doesn't want to know?
I mean, it's kind of where I was thinking.
But you've lowering guard.
I was going to say you've uncovered a few layers before you asked that question.
Just great.
You've
questions.
identified the gap of I'm curious. Why am I calling?
Yeah.
Shouldn't my agent be calling?
Yeah.
And then you ask that question.
That's exactly what that was my hunch. It's like if they're talking to you, they have a problem. Probably. If they're looking for something in your area and they're calling you, they've probably already enlisted somebody.
And they're still going to give you the reflex no. They're still not going to go, oh, yeah, I'm so glad that you just asked me to work with you. They're still going to be like, no. And then that's what I found, is to use that line. Hey, look, if there was a better way, would you want to know? And then I would flow into my value proposition. I have a 5-point simple plan of action. May I share it with you in less than 2 minutes? And if it makes sense, it might be the best 2 minutes. If it doesn't make sense, then hang up on me. And then I would flow into my value proposition.
And the way that you went about that, though, it's so benign, right? It's like, if there was a better way, would you want to know? And as much as we don't like yes or no questions, that no saves you a ton of time. It's like we say we love yeses, we love nos, we hate maybes, right? So that in that case, that no is I want to ask you a yes or no question, because if you tell me yes and you've given me permission to go forward in the process, I'm getting closer to where I'm going to convert you, period, just because there is a pain point here. Anyway, I just wanted to...
Taylor nailed it, though, is why else would they be calling me? Why else would they be inquiring if there wasn't truly an opportunity? Because it doesn't make sense that they're spending time at an open house on a Saturday if they love their agent.
Does it... and this comes back to the same thing with the listing, right? There is a pain, right? But is it really a validity of a... Can you use it as a tool to be able to help somebody if they don't acknowledge that there is a pain? Like you have a motivation seller. If I know what the motivation is and I don't have some form of questioning to get them to acknowledge that it's a pain, is it really in play? And because I watch this all the time with just salesmanship and insurance, trying to uncover the pain. And it's like, well, I know what the pain is. It's like you assume it. It's like, cool, that's fine. You can assume it all day long, but unless that other person acknowledges that it actually is a pain, then at the end of the day, it's not going to be used as a motivation or a motivator in order to get to a decision.
Authorship is ownership. You have to get them to say everything. Authorship is ownership. If they say it, it's so there's a model in presenting a CMA, and the model is that you have the property in front of them. They look at it, they see it, and you say, "Are you familiar with this property?" And it's going to be one in their neighborhood. Say, "You're familiar with the address?" "Yeah." "How many bedrooms?" And you have them say it.
Oh wow, because you're making them articulate.
Absolutely. "How many bathrooms? What's the square footage? How long has it been on the market? What's the price?" Next one. "You're familiar with this?" "Yeah." "So it's right around the block from you, 2 blocks, right?" "Yep." "How many bedrooms?" And you're showing it's the exact same house. "How long has it been on the market? What's the price?" You have them say it. And then after you go through it, you say, "So based on what I just showed you, what price do you believe that we should list at to create value in the eyes of a buyer?"
It's so simple, and it's so profoundly powerful and artistic, because it happens in every sales transaction. It's like, well, I don't want to go through that process. It takes too long. I know it, they know it. I don't need to do that. And it's like, no, you really do. You really do, because I could just say, hey, look, I've looked at 4 properties. They're all 4 bedrooms. They're all 3 baths. They're at this price. This is what the price needs to be unless you want to sell. It's like, okay, cool. Thanks for coming. It's like, the difference between conversion is the delta between the time you start that process to the answer in which that you need to get to. The space between there is where all of the aha moments go, right? Like to Taylor's point, right? Like that space is them going, oh, okay, yeah, you know what I do? I guess I do have a pain. You know, I guess I really do need to sell this in the next 45 days. You know what? I guess I really do need to probably think about coverage instead of just getting the cheapest price on this policy. Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. I am buying this to cover my largest asset, and if it burns to the ground, like that would be totally devastating. Like, oh, okay, maybe I should think about it. It doesn't just happen because you say it, and it doesn't happen usually over the course of like 5 seconds. You usually have to walk somebody through their process for them to kind of have this aha moment.
The key in connection with what we talked about earlier today is, unless this is in front of your agents as a dialogue, they're winging it. They're winging it. It's got to be there so that if they're on the phone with somebody that's kind of taking them down a rabbit hole, they can pattern interrupt and get them back on and continue to ask the questions. Yeah. Because you just nailed it. Like, that's self-discovery. You are asking questions, and the only reason you wouldn't ask a question is because you don't know what question to ask next, and it's easier to run your mouth.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting, though, but you talked about the nuance of going through the process versus not, and you're essentially making assumptions. Oh, they know. They know. We do the same thing as leaders. Oh, they know. They know the process. It's not enough to know. It's enough for it to be visible, because our environment dictates our behavior oftentimes. And if we don't intentionally set the environment, that's why humans don't do what they know they probably should do, because their environment's not set up for it, or they don't have any pain accordingly. I think that goes hand in hand.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, early in our career, my career, I didn't believe in scripts. You know, I believe in, ideas, philosophies, sequence. I completely fundamentally disagree with that now. Being later in my career of watching human behavior at scale, I completely disagree with my younger self that we're conditioned over repetition, right? And without repetition, we don't get conditioning. It doesn't become subconscious of what I say. Unless you're just subconsciously gifted and you know how to do it, that's not a repeatable, scalable system. And so a script, you might not stay with a script forever, but you are going to stay with a script in the beginning of a process, and you need it, because otherwise you're going to make up whatever you want to make up. And you can, if you just stay in the business long enough and you do enough reps, you'll figure it out. But that's a longer process to get to the outcome. If I have a script that's a rebuttal, and I go through it, and I have 5 real life examples, and I have it in front of me, and I go through 5 examples, I am and I get somebody else who takes 200 calls and takes the objection and doesn't have it, and they just say whatever they want, you have to do 20, 30, 40, 50, 100x more reps than the person that has the answer. Even if I read it off the script and it was super mechanical, even if the 5 were really bad, because the 6th one's going to be way better.
Another way of saying what you're saying is we all have scripts. Just does yours work? Scripts are effective or being efficient with time. That's all. And so you have a script. You have a system. Like I would say models and systems. And a system is doing the same thing every time for everybody.
Right.
Here's the secret. They don't know that you just said what you said to the person you just spoke to. It's a system. Like
And the seasoned person has a script. It's just stored away in the back of their
head. It's internalized.
Right.
It's internalized. Like what I just shared here. I've done the listing presentation thousands of times. I just was reciting verbatim a presentation that I hand wrote to my coach and faxed it to every single day for a month. Faxed. Yeah. Faxed.
You wrote it down by hand?
Hand wrote. And it was 11 pages of handwriting every day.
Every day for a month?
Every day.
So your coach made 15-minute increments for 30 days.
But that's different coach.
God, your coaches abuse you, bro.
Well, what does writing bring, man? Writing brings clarity.
Authorship is ownership.
Well, and so interesting enough on that, in full agreement. So for years, so I could type as fast as I can think.
Sure.
I can I could literally type, and I take very copious notes. About 2 years ago, I had the epiphany that I was taking all these notes, but I wasn't retaining much. And then I read this article that said there's a study that if you handwrite, you retain so much more. And I have not typed out being at a presentation in 2 years, and I write on my iPad and I journal and all of that and whatnot, but I don't type anything out anymore.
That's amazing. Go ahead.
No.
Nope, because I was going to
Mine's a transition.
Okay, because mine's a transition too. So,
Paper, rock, scissors.
That's exactly what I was going to talk about with just technology. And I know you're using some really cool technology hacks right now with, your CEO of a real estate business. You have your own real estate team. You have 23 coaching clients. You have a busy life. And you're able to, come up here and hang with us. We've been trying to do this for like 2 years, by the way. But I know you're super busy. But and I look at your calendar. Every single slot of it is filled. And you have used technology to optimize to be able to do this at a way that's blown me away, honestly. And I think a lot of us are looking for different hacks and ways that we can be more productive. And it's overwhelming because all of it's so hard to understand what you can use and what you can't use. I just wanted to go into some opportunities that you're doing right now to be able to get the most leverage, not only that you're suggesting that your clients use, but maybe also some things that you're using right now that could be helpful for somebody.
Yeah, so I think the definition is a tech stack. What is the technology that I'm using to stack on top of each other to be more efficient? And again, it goes back to models and systems, and then power technology. Because technology should just make your life easier and allow you to scale. And in this case, you threw all the different businesses that I have and amount of variables that I have, and that would all bottleneck if I put the technology before the model and system that I use.
Got it.
And so I would say the first one is time blocking. I live through my Google Calendar. It is absolutely, if it's not in my schedule, it doesn't exist. I mean, that is gospel. So that's first and foremost. Live through your calendar and teach people how to treat you that you live in your calendar. And what you erase, you must replace. So if you say this is important and yet something pops up, where is it going to fit in your calendar after that?
Wow.
So that's first and foremost.
That's a really big time one.
Yeah, his calendar's. I mean, every slot is layered. Every slot's layered. It's amazing.
And it's not just throwing stuff in there. It's what I deemed are my big rocks. What my 20%.
Right.
What I've already declared would make this a great month and a great week, and then I plan out my week. So schedule, I would say, is first and foremost. I've been I'll use Evernote as next. Evernote, I've been a fan of that tool since 2009. 2008, 2009. I've lived inside that program. And
What do you use that for?
that allows me to stay organized with things that I would put into a category. And in that tool, it's a tag. So, for example, I'll do something really that's timely right now, which is taxes. So I have multiple 1099s and multiple W-2s and K-9s and things that I collect over time. Well, as I get the PDF, I'll tag it taxes-2024. So anytime I get it, I'm throwing it into Evernote, into my personal notebook, and then tagging it taxes 2024. Well, yes, I could do this in a file, and yes, but this is inside of Evernote. So when I needed to upload it to my CPA's mainframe, I literally just went in there and said, download into my taxes folder, and I uploaded, and it took me less than 2 minutes to do it all.
So you use that to accumulate whatever information and sort whatever you need, and then that's just been a catalog electric file cabinet.
Yeah. I'll give you another example. I'm contemplating going to New York in June. And so I played on a couple sites, Delta, and then went on Google. And so anytime I'd see something, I'd screenshot it, and I'd put it into my travel folder.
That's cool.
And so now it's there, and it's easy. And now you hopped in the car, went. Now I can go back, and I have it there. Cool. Now also I can look when I go to purchase, I'd be like, oh shoot, it was $400 for the flight 2 weeks ago, and now it's $625. I probably should have bought it when I originally looked.
Cool.
And so and then pivoting over to my coaching roster, one of my biggest pet peeves in having coaches since 2005 is that you could tell if the coach is prepared for the call. Mm-hmm. And so my cadence for my coaching calls is numbers, report your numbers, I take them and I put it into today's coaching call. So it's their name and today's date. Numbers. Then I go over homework. Always will hold them accountable to their homework. Why? Because I asked them to do homework. And the homework isn't busy work. It's homework to move an agenda forward to help them. But maybe they didn't do it. And if I don't ask, they're not going to say they didn't do it. And that to me is one of the greatest skills and tools that I have is I am prepared for the homework that I requested. And I'm going to ask, and they know I'm going to ask, and it's part of the cadence of when we become a client, which is we're going to talk about numbers, then we're going to go over homework, then we're going to talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. Because if our numbers aren't in alignment, you're going to distract and talk about something that is not necessarily going to move you closer to your goal. So we're not talking about anything you want to talk about until numbers, homework, and then I'm prepared with questions.
Not going to distract the call.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and I think you mentioned coaching, and I just keep thinking leadership, right? For the leaders that are leading, this is no different to me than when you work with your team, is to say, is there a consistent framework that they can expect, you can expect, and then you can paint after that stuff is covered. Yeah. And that's one thing I'm uncovering for myself, because the reason that's powerful, it also allows you to objectively benchmark progress. If you can't objectively benchmark progress, you're also bringing in the emotional part and the inaccuracy of being human being and historically reflecting on anything or whatever it is. And you get through a day, you get through a week, you go through a month, and you go, what did I actually do? And you have some days where you feel like you're going to accomplish it. You have some days that you don't feel like you've done anything. And it's like the math is the path, right? The path is the math. And so is organization a strength of mine? No. But I'm being forced because I'm spending the time anyway. It's just more time of not having the framework, not having the organization, and I don't get to celebrate the benchmark of progress.
Yeah.
And so for you leaders out there, coaches out there, whatever it is, spend the time on creating what that framework is. I'm sure sometimes it's numbers, homeworks, and you're into the other stuff rather quickly. Sometimes it may be that you spend more time there, but at least both parties expect a consistent framework so you can start to get that repetition.
So I'll give you a very simple model, and it's called the GROW model. What's your goal? What's the reality? Do we hit it? Do we not? What's your story? What's the obstacle? What got in the way? And what are we doing going forward?
So what's your goal?
The reality.
What's the reality?
What's the obstacle? Way.
What do we do now, basically?
Exactly. What's our plan going forward? And so the reason, as you were dissecting what I had shared a couple seconds ago, our contract is 42 30-minute calls. Okay, so as a coach, it is 42 30-minute calls. And 30 minutes goes like that. And if I'm letting them run the call, we can be 20 minutes into a call and had no progress, and that doesn't serve them.
Yes.
They hired me to move their business forward. I am the professional. I've understand that that's what they want to talk about, but they hired me to move their business forward. So what was our goal?
Love that.
What happened? Now you tell me what the realities are. Like what happened?
And
What was the interference?
Obstacle, the obstacle would be the interference of why you didn't hit the goal, right?
Yes, it's a story. It's the interference.
Sure.
That we talked about earlier. It's okay. So now, what are we going to do differently? What new skill? What new tool? What new thing
and
do
these are
you
weekly
need?
coaching calls.
Absolutely.
Right?
Well, 42. So
for that duration,
Right.
but the cadence is weekly.
Yes.
10 weeks
Right.
off.
So you define these sprints. You go to the sprint, right, and you work through that. It's just such a nugget, man. It's just like it's simple, not easy. Because what happens is you get started on it. You think it's a good idea. But then 3-4 weeks in, as leaders, we go, no, they get it now, or they're progressing, or they're not progressing, and then we wonder why at the end of the quarter or at the end of the 6 months that they're disappointed, we're disappointed, because we didn't stick to the framework that we committed to.
So I think to those that are listening, we have to define what is leadership, and to me, I subscribe to two different definitions, and the first one is to teach people how to think so they can get what they want when they want it. And if you're not meeting with them, how are you teaching them how to think? You're lecturing to a group of people? That's not leadership. That's not teaching people how to think so they can get what they want when they want it. And then the other one is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. And the first one is by Gary Keller, and the second one is by Dr. John Maxwell. And so if when you can define what makes you a leader, and the when I first moved into this team leader role, one of my coaches at the time said, Lee, if you think you're leading and no one's following, you're just going on a walk. And I was like, well, I guess I need to change what I'm doing because no one's following. And that right there is the only way you can make these adjustments is if you're actually meeting with your people and influencing the way that they're thinking, the way that they're making decisions, the way they can make their adjustments.
Gosh, if I take nothing more from this call, it will be that, because it's so practical and tactical that it'll move your needle next week.
Yeah.
And that's what everyone wants. Right? They want to get what they want when they want.
Yeah,
and our ability to influence that by setting up a framework, an accountability system, and a relationship is leadership.
You're the vehicle.
Yeah.
You're not the environment. You're the vehicle, and the environment is a variable in that vehicle.
Yeah. Wow.
That's really good, man. Yeah, it's a leadership lesson. I love that definition. It's a cool definition as far as I really like the piece of allowing them to get what they want and on their time. I really like that. It's really good. Well, I want to end it with this. All of us are students of the game, hopefully, and we're all looking to get better. You have a unique vantage point on just the volume of humans that you've been able to interact with and guide through some very intimate and hard conversations, and all achievers looking to get to the next level. When you look at your top 3 clients who have had the best results under your leadership, great word, what are some of the attributes that if you were going to extract from them and install into a new student of the game who wants to achieve what they want to achieve, what are the things that would be the most potent to be able to help somebody get what they would want when they want it on their time?
Yeah. Number one is blind faith. Trust the process. Trust the environment. You think of using sports analogy, using the triangle offense. Blind faith. Trust that it's going to work. To plug into an organization, whether it's your brokerage, whether it's a coaching company, whether it's a coaching company and your brokerage. Surround yourself with masterminds and growth opportunities and folks that are in it for a career. We talked about this earlier. Real estate is a lonely business. Entrepreneurship is a lonely business.
You're not kidding.
You guys have such an advantage being a trio that you can bounce ideas off each other. Most entrepreneurs are solopreneurs is what I believe the phrase is. And so plugging into an organization and I would say the third one, which I just thought about as I said this, it's not a bad thing to partner and do the part of the position that you love. You don't have to do it all, and that's the flex. The flex is running a profitable business. Well, I'll say it a different way. The purpose of business is profit. The purpose of profit is to fund the perfect life. And the perfect life is to truly live before you die. And don't let your ego destroy that opportunity if it's being part of someone else's vision. And as long as profit is part of this plan and you can run and achieve your perfect life, it's not a negative thing to formulate. And so I share that because I made that decision in 2009 here in Orlando. And I was $30,000 in debt, and I knew I needed to help my mom and my grandma down here in South Florida. And I knew that in order for me to build enough momentum to make the move by 2011, I needed to partner with somebody who I know, like, and trust, that we are in alignment, that we have a lot of the same values. And I approached him with no ego and said, hey, man, I'm thinking of moving home back to Miami. And he said, me too. And here we are 15 years later selling 85 homes on average a year. And it provided me the space to grow as a leader and a coach. And it helped him grow a massively successful investment arm and coaching arm in helping investors. Because we both looked at this as we don't need to do it all. We can partner and we can build a highly profitable, successful business and change lives. With our director of operations, Priscilla, who's been with us for going on 13 years, and all the agents inside of our organization that benefit from the partnership and the vision. And so I think too many folks believe that's failure. That's not a success because I didn't do it. No, man. Like, the second I had the opportunity to coach with Glover U, it's like, absolutely, I'll be part of this other vision all day. Like, I have the opportunity to do what I love. Like, why do I need to go find all my clients and go do all these things? Like, let me stay in my lane. And that's number 3.
Man, that's powerful, because I think the solopreneur, I got these two amazing humans to call my partners. And, and I consider all the agency owners that we have now in different locations are partners as well. But you feel like you need to do it all because that's the badge of honor. That is the thing that we're supposed to do, we're called to do, to take up all the weight and throw it on and I've got to know how to do everything. And it's like, I can feel the conviction in your voice, but I've also lived that. And the best results have always come from focusing on where your highest leverage point is, and then finding great partnerships to be able to do the rest. That could be a VA from another part of the world who helps you take care of certain things that that are not in your wheelhouse. That could be partnering with a company. That could be a vendor. That could be true equity partnerships with people that have the same value sets. To me, that's the leverage. There's two leverage points there. One, I want to do what I know how to do really well and do it at the highest and best and live in that 80-20 play area that you talk about. That's my highest leverage for me and my time. And then everything else, I've got to find the leverage points on the other stuff. And that usually comes through other relationships. And the humility to be able to know the difference. And maybe the experience and the judgment to be able to know the difference and find that, because sometimes you don't know what that is.
I share this with my clients repeatedly. Nobody wins an award for working 60 hours a week. That's not a flex. It's not a flex.
Yeah, Rod says that all the time.
Yeah, you also said something. Profit allows a design. I interpret it as a design to life, or the purpose is to live a life while we're here, kind of thing. I think sometimes that's a miss. I know, at least if I'm speaking for me, you get so caught up in the metrics, you get so caught up in the goals and the growth and the opportunity that sometimes you realize, hey, man, the business is a vehicle to allow you to live life, right? To allow to support the life that you're living before your death, right? Between birth and death. And make sure that those are aligned. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to be in balance and out of balance in different seasons, and you're going to always try to recalibrate. But at the ultimate goal, when you detach from it, it is you're doing this so you can live a good life on how you define a good life before we pass. And that's a good reminder.
And to stack on that, this is the purpose of coaching. It's not to necessarily help someone go from 50 to 100 closings.
Arbitrary,
that's cool.
Yeah.
And it's so that you can take more time off, or you can find the leverage. You
can send your daughter to the school you want to send her to, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
And so I use this analogy, and it's I own racehorses, and racehorses.
What a cool thing to say, by the way.
Yeah, that's dude.
So cool.
I know that's not a flex, but that's pretty flex.
Pretty cool rabbit hole.
It's pretty
Hey,
cool.
you did wait an hour into the podcast to tell that.
Let me tell you a story. I own racehorses.
And we win.
Right. I have a whole wall of our winner circle.
I will tell the listeners at home. I digress. One of the coolest times is Lee will come over to the house and we'll be hanging out and we'll be having a deep conversation. He'll just, whether we'll be in the pool hanging out, and he'll bring like the iPad. I'm like, what, dude? We were just like talking. What are you doing? He's like, oh, we'll do my horse is racing in a second. So he'll pull up the iPad and we'll watch the race for a second. Then they're like, oh, we either won or we didn't. We've had times where you've won. We have times we don't. And then just go back to your talking.
Yeah, that's it.
It's pretty cool.
You running this weekend?
No, unfortunately. And so back to the blinders. So some horses can't look straight. They get distracted by the horses that are coming up or whatnot.
Sure.
And so what they do is we put blinders on the horses so that it can only look straight, and so it knows to run, and it gives the jockey more control of the horse. So just giving the visual. And so what coaching does is it allows the client to see what's right here. Not what's over here, but right here. That you just can't see because you got your blinders on. And so it's about this. If you remember protractors back in the day, that this isn't a lot of space, but over a period of time, this is what we mean by to live your life.
That's
to
fantastic.
truly live your life.
And the blinders, it doesn't mean those things over there don't exist, but they don't have anything to do with you running your race, And I think it's a choice to put those blinders on. It's a gift sometimes to put those blinders on. And as a coach or as a leader, you can equip and be the person to, depending on their goals and depending on what they want, help them put those blinders on for their own goals and their own sake. So that's
Absolutely.
a great word.
Yeah. But it's about creating a team.
Yeah, I love that.
It's cool.
Well, man,
What a cool
first of all,
conversation.
such a cool conversation. I appreciate you coming up and obviously get a chance to hang and spending so much time with our team. That was super rich in there before we turned the camera on in the conference room. And that was a podcast in and of itself. That was a little raw and real
Yeah,
right
we got
there.
we're going on 4 hours
I
now.
know.
It's pretty damn good.
Really amazing. We'll have to invoice you for your time. But speaking of invoicing of your time, I wanted to give you a plug on where people can find you, because I know you're super accessible and I know you welcome the dialogue, and if somebody has questions that come up in this podcast, they're listening to this right now, where can they go find you and maybe zip you a couple questions or some different ways to connect with you?
Yeah, I would absolutely love you to check out and subscribe to my YouTube, Coach Lee Rosa on YouTube, and absolutely find me on Instagram, Real Estate Business Coach on Instagram, and hit me up on either one of those, and I'd love to entertain you, and hopefully this was entertaining for you guys and our listeners as well. So thank you.
Absolutely incredible.
Entertaining to say the least, man. Well, if you loved it today, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share it, but more importantly, connect with Mr. Lee Rosa. Lee, thanks for coming up, man. Be extraordinary, buddies. Thanks.